All right, all right, all right. So, hey, Denise, how are you, sister?
What's happening, brother Darryl? I'm well, thank you. And yourself?
Just another day in the struggle, trying to do the thing, slamming Cadillac doors, running down the strip on Vogues.
I'm trying to tell you, you got to do what we got to do out here. It's real.
Indeed, indeed. No, it's all good though. It's all good.
All good.
I'm liking that we're doing this on a regular basis. I'm going to start promoting the YouTube channel, and I'll also do some Facebook marketing as well. So
Okay.
that'll be a cool situation. Uh,
All
so
right. All
anyway,
right.
uh,
All
let's
right.
get
All
this
right.
started. I see.
Let's get
Hey
this
June,
started.
I see you in there. What's going on, sister? So we've talked about a few things, Denise,
Mm-hmm.
and I like this format, the way we're doing it, where you're basically leading this, and then I'm like, I got your back, and I want to get to the point where we have, another sister, even if it's like a guest.
Absolutely.
I want to get to the point. So I've got a few of them that I'm kind of, trying to vet and put together. You know,
Okay.
and we'll
All
do that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, so the suffering Olympics. Now the first
Woo!
yeah, so the first time I heard this probably had to be early 2000s, because we were in, this is before Facebook
Mm-hmm.
and Instagram. And basically what was happening is that in a group that we were in, it was a email list serve. So you put your comment in and somebody can comment after you. So that's what we had before social media. And I remember that in this one list serve, every time a brother would say anything about what black men go through and what black men are dealing with, there was
Mm-hmm.
always a fury of sisters who would, step in, oh no, but black women, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
when, brothers were like, yeah, this ain't the suffering Olympics. We need to
Yeah.
stop competing and
Yeah.
just worry about what's happening to all of us. And so yeah, so that's
Right.
that's where you want to pick it up.
Well, I mean, that's exactly why I chose this topic. I was on Twitter yesterday, and I'm not a big tweeter, so things have to sort of catch me. Um, oh, and for those of you all who are adults still wearing retainers, please, please, excuse the slight lisp today. I didn't have that thing in for a couple of days, and so
Yeah.
anyway, I'm sure y'all know my pain, so bear with me, please. Um, but anyway, I was on Twitter, and so there was this brother who tweeted, basically something about, or something to the effect that black men um, do have privilege as men. So various people were chiming in. Brothers were refuting or rejecting his tweet, but as brothers do, you all come to each other as men. So there wasn't any sort of bashing him, but just really saying, listen, we can talk all day long about the things that black women go through without having to reject the notion that black men suffer. And so this is the kinds of conversations that black men were having via tweets, and they were giving evidence and all kinds of data. And then there was a sister who tweeted, don't, something to the effect of, don't act like, you know black pregnant women aren't, the most murdered and something else, and cis men do not lament, violence against black women, and they certainly don't call it out in their circles. So, I'm reading this tweet, right, and I'm scratching my head. out of frustration, not because I don't recognize the fault in this tweet, but out of frustration, because it's like, where do you even begin with that kind of tweet? So she just
Yeah.
said that everybody in the planet, um, every black man on the planet, is responsible somehow for this, this violence against black women. And she refers to black men as cis. So she's also identifying a very specific group of black men. So the only thing that I could do in response was simply tweet, well, when black women address or refer to black men as cis, what's going to follow is a bunch of misandry. So
Yes.
leaving it at that. So, your point about this competition is really important for black women to recognize and to own, because black men continuously tell us that we are not listening to them, and there's something extremely dehumanizing about not recognizing someone's pain and someone's trauma.
Yes.
It's so dismissive, and it takes nothing for us or from us, well, actually both, for us and from us, to be able to say, brother, you know what, I'm really sorry. I hear you. I'm so sorry you went through that. um, I'm hearing your pain, I'm seeing your pain, I'm feeling for you, right? Because we're fam, we're all in this together. But somehow that's not what black men are hearing from black women. And they've been telling us this and telling us this. They've been tweeting it, they're sending out SOSs and
Smoke
all kinds.
signals,
I was about to say Morse code, they're tapping, you know,
message in a bottle.
right, message in the bottle, and we're just not hearing it. And so we really need to be more and more cognizant of the fact that we have to stop engaging in this suffering Olympics, and not only stop engaging in it, right, we have to literally reject that somehow black women have gone through pain and trauma, and black men were not there with us going through the same trauma.
Yes.
We have to reject that. And it reminds me, Darryl, and I know you were following this as first of all, as a journalist. I know this hit your radar. But remember when what was that? Was it 2016, 2017, when Trump got got real ignorant with the sisters at the National Press Club?
Oh yeah.
And so there was all of this, outcry from black women. Well, where were the black men, and why didn't they stand up for, the sisters? And I like him. Cortland Malloy of the Washington Post wrote an article about that situation where, he was, taking, and, I guess interviewed, well, actually, I'm not even sure that he actually interviewed these women, because it just seemed like they were quotes taken from different contexts. Um, but my point is that these black women were saying, brothers are never along, our side, and we are always by ourselves, and we can't count on them. And if this had been, a black man, black women would have come out in droves to support them. And and again, scratching my head out of frustration, it's like, where in the world do we get that any of us have gone through any part of this struggle, what it means to be black in this country?
You know
And
where it comes from. You know where it comes from.
absolutely,
Propaganda works. Propaganda works well. You know,
absolutely,
Hitler's main man talked about propaganda, what it is and what it does, and
yes,
it hasn't changed since then. But I want to do something real quick though before
sure,
we move down the
sure,
line,
sure,
so that
sure,
we don't forget. Let's
yeah,
go back to that heifer calling black men cis. because I don't want
Ooh,
people to
okay.
get confused
Yeah.
and think
Yeah.
that she's calling them sis, short for sister.
Yeah.
Because part of
Mhm.
our problem as Black people, and particularly Black women,
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
that we accept propaganda from other communities
Absolutely.
and then we run with it. And this
Yes.
whole cis bullshit is short for cisgender, which
Right.
I soundly reject. I'm
I
heterosexual.
reject it too.
Cisgender can go straight to hell, and anybody who uses it can go straight to hell. I'm heterosexual. I've been that way. I'm straight. Been that way all my life. I'm not interested in cisgendered. I'm not interested in another community
Right.
defining.
Finding. Well,
That's the problem.
and exactly, that is a problem, and what it also speaks to is the because I don't, and I'm not saying that there aren't any out there, but when I'm looking at social media and those kinds of things, I don't hear our queer brothers looking at other brothers and going, hey, this is my cis homie. Like, I
Yeah,
don't see that. So
it's a
it
very small
really.
group, and that group are people like the very smart brothers who we said are very gay
Right,
brothers,
exactly.
people like that who are subversives, who be gay, do your thing, but don't pretend that you're for there's some kind of unity when there's not.
Right. Yeah, no, extremely liberal, and they're eating butter biscuits, and so that's where we are. But this idea that that black women, that black queer women can just throw this term, and as you said, use it to define straight
Black
black
people.
men. I think
Yeah,
it's quite nervy, and it's also, again, very dismissive.
but
Like.
it's more than nervy. It's dangerous. It's destructive. Let's come up with
Mhm.
some superlatives that are what they are, because that community has come into our community. Let me read Reginald Hicks's
Okay.
comment. Reginald Hicks says the real insult is that this branding comes from a community that does not want to be branded but insists on branding
A-
us.
a-
From the
yes. So
Yeah.
that's the other. So that's the irony. That really is
Yes.
the irony,
Yeah.
particularly
Isn't
when
it
you look
ironic?
at, right, particularly when you think of the LGBTQIA as the racist movement that it is. And
Yeah.
so once again, our queer sisters, or even just our liberal sisters, are snatching that language, and I'm not even sure that we really either understand collectively, um, that we are snatching language out of the jaws of white supremacy, or if we don't give a damn. Maybe it's a combination of both, but it is
It's probably a little bit of both,
it's probably a
because
little bit of both.
because the targeting of black men has gotten specific. It went from just, black men to the
Just
racial
like,
sharp focus of straight black men.
absolutely,
and
yes.
and that's dangerous. And I'm glad that a lot, because I know quite a few gay black men who aren't with the bullshit,
Hmm.
and I'm glad when I see that, because they can't afford to isolate us. I mean,
Yes.
if we get to this whole straight black men situation, and straight black men feel like they have to just save themselves, then that's bad for everybody else. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Well,
It's bad
and
for us too.
right, it's bad for everybody, but also, I mean, we're already seeing that happen. And you and I had a conversation earlier about this. We're already seeing that happen with the development of the manosphere, because it's like,
Yes.
for black women to be so dismissive in this suffering and engaging constantly in this suffering Olympics, where the moment we hear about a black man's pain, we have to say, oh no, stop, pump the
Yep.
brakes, no, 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 let me tell you what's going on with sisters. And when we've already said that it's dehumanizing, but the message to black men is, we don't give a shit about you.
Well,
And
it
if
goes back. I'm sorry.
and as black men's natural mate, and this is regardless of whether you are a straight woman, queer, whatever the case may be, we are in this together. I mean, so there are two of us, you know, there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it at the two because I'm not getting ready to get into that other conversation.
Well,
But
see, and I'm going to say this, and we don't. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole,
mhm,
unless we, bring a black gay
mhm,
man on the show.
mhm,
But the reality of it is, I'm gonna go back to James Baldwin, because James
mhm,
Baldwin is the reason why I became a writer.
mhm.
Dynamic brother. He's also
Absolutely.
one of the main reasons why I started calling myself, Black revolutionary, Black. You
Mhm,
know what I'm
mhm.
saying? Those kinds of things.
Right,
He
right,
was a
right.
brother who was very, very gay, but didn't give a shit about that as much as he cared about, and he always defined himself as a
That's
black
black.
man. And
Right.
I
Well,
think that, yeah, so I think that for them to try to, create this wedge, that's why today I have a lot of respect for Cleo Managa, who's,
mhm.
a black same gender
Yes.
loving activist.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like we can't afford all these wedges. I mean, they're already trying to drive the wedge between black men and black women. If they start separating groups of black men and groups of black women,
Mhm.
I don't know if we're gonna make it, Denise.
Yeah, it's a hard it's a hard uphill climb, but you know, we don't what we also know is that we don't have a choice. So those of us so this is why these kinds of platforms and these kinds of conversations are important because you know, if you know, I suspect, and I said this last week, that you know there are a lot of black women out here who um, understand this very well, very clearly. They have clarity around it, um, but may not even know how pervasive it is. They may be sick of trying to talk to black women who you know are going to ride this thing until the wheels fall off, or again they just may be in their own little happy world, you know, surrounded by black men and just loving it and you know and living in their own personal paradise. And I ain't mad at any of y'all that are doing that.
Yes.
Seriously. um but we have to continue to have these conversations because they also need to they need to be the alternative to what we are hearing in the media, you know, these social media platforms that are, you know, being you know, just run roughshod with all kinds of black misandry. You know,
Yeah.
TikTok, every time you look up on TikTok, it's, you know, a black woman claiming something about a black man, or it's a black woman who is showcasing her white husband.
Yes.
And to me, it's so interesting because those situations more often than not look like they're showcasing a lifestyle versus an actual relationship with another human being that they claim to share their want to share their lives with. So we must continue to shout this, you know, from the mountaintops. But
Yeah.
you know, the suffering Olympics ladies, sisters, I promise you, that's not the route that we want to take. And what I was saying about being the natural mate, again, this is not a hard reference to, um, you know, sexual identity, but we are the, however we got here.
You're right.
There's a man created, there's a woman created. So
Yeah.
there's one over, you know, in those Caucasus Mountains, right? And
Yeah.
there's, you know, and there's on the mother continent, and you know, in other places. So we are the natural mate of black men. And being the
Yes.
natural mate of black men, if they cannot trust us, if we do not show up for them, if we are dismissive of their pain and their trauma, or just, you know, their simple well-being, if we are dismissive of that and pretty much shit on it, we
Yeah.
leave black men so vulnerable and without support. And
Well, and that should be scary for black women. It should be scary that black men are being left without, you know, the support of black women, because who needs support? Black women. I mean, so there's this whole dichotomy, which is really a psychotic clashing of
Mhm.
of a divided thought. You've got women who will say, I need a protector, provider, black men
Mhm.
need to do this, need to do that, but at the same time they don't give a damn about what we're going through. These are things that that are coming to a head now, especially as that population that started the propaganda and bullshit in the late 80s and early 90s gets older and older.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're passing it down to some of the younger sisters, but that population is getting older and alone. There are more black
Yes.
women now than ever before who are over 40,
For
not
your
only unmarried, but no children.
children. Yeah.
So they basically are literally becoming the proverbial cat ladies. And I'm not sure if they're really looking into the future as far as what is about to happen,
Mhm.
but it's about to get worse and worse because, and they'll deny this and be mad and say whatever they want to, but a black man can always dip down and get him a younger sister,
Yeah.
and it ain't even got to be about money.
Right.
You
Well,
just,
it's
you know,
usually not about money for
about that.
black men.
Yeah, yeah. So
Can
like
you
we said,
cook? You
see,
know how to make a sweet potato pie?
man.
you
You
know?
know, Denise, a few years ago, I posted on Facebook, and I said that I'm not really that concerned about a woman doing X, Y, and Z. I was like, "How's your mac and cheese game?"
Hey,
And
like
one is,
those, right. Can you make
yeah,
a bed?
okay, right. And so one of the sisters who responded, I was actually dating, and I was hoping she would pick up on that. Of course, she didn't.
Mhm.
She thought it was funny. She said something flippant about, well, you make mac and cheese. Why do I need to be concerned? I'm like, yeah, you're right. Bye. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
pick your drawers up and go home. But,
Oh,
but,
right.
but that's, I hate to be
Yeah.
so crass, but that's
But
kind of where it's coming to. I talked to a sister just before we started the show, and it
mhm.
used to be where black men would kind of take a lot of shit from black women.
They're not
And
doing
we
that.
do that because shit, black women are so damn sweet. Just I
Yeah.
mean, ain't if God made something better than a black woman, he kept it for himself with his selfish ass. You know what I mean? And
right, right.
so we did a lot to maintain
Yeah.
a woman if we got her. But unfortunately, at this stage in the game, women are out here. A lot of these sisters are they sexing. They want to sex like us, or like they think we're sexing.
Yeah,
And there's
yeah.
not a lot of value in some of the sisters who used to be amongst the best and brightest. So it's getting worse. It's getting worse.
Yeah, I mean it is getting worse. I mean, you go out to places and you will see boatloads of tables with women, no man in sight. Um, I'm single, but I ain't going on no girls trip. I'm telling y'all right now, I'm not doing that, right?
Yeah.
That just seems like um it just seems like sort of throwing in the towel or announcing to the world that, well, you know what, I don't need a black man. And yeah, that would be a total lie. A total, it just would be a lie. um
Also, can we talk about some of the social shit that is involved with not just girl trips but girl groups. So I used
yeah.
to do a lot of events here in LA,
Hmm.
and so other event coordinators would ask me, hey man, well, can you come through my event, can you bring some brothers?
Hmm.
And I eventually had to start letting people know because it was happening at my events. When women are in these groups, they've got bad behavior. It's hard for a man. Now I'll bust in. I don't care. I got that kind of,
Yeah.
confidence and I don't give a shit. But it's hard for, just one or two dudes to break in when you got six or seven women who are saying stuff like, well, we didn't come here for that. And no, we don't want to dance. And how can you come over here and talk to us and you didn't buy us
Us
drinks?
drinks.
So all of these things are just really just miss socialization. And it's a problem.
It's I like that term, or that identification of the behavior as missocialization, because I do believe that we are looking at some missocialization, because a lot of what we're talking about in terms of what we see on social media and elsewhere in terms of the behavior of Black women and jumping out there and making demands of Black men, and rejecting the feelings and the humanity of Black men.
Yeah.
um, it's you almost want to just, take it down to its most basic level and say, who raised you?
You're right.
Because some of this stuff is just, it it is so simple, I think. And I could be wrong, because I'm wrong about a lot of things, but I don't think I'm wrong about this.
Yeah.
But it's a very simple human response, right? To care, you know, to care,
Yeah.
um, to listen, to show some compassion, and it confuses me, because we are one, as a people, we are compassionate.
Yes,
We are
absolutely.
extremely compassionate. The fact that we have not um, torn up the planet
Yeah.
and and
And
stuck,
torn up those people.
and torn up those people and put, black, red, and green flags everywhere,
Yeah.
is, I don't know, it's a testament to, like I said, our compassion. But in that same vein, that compassion that comes so naturally to us, as Black women, we're losing it for our men, and that saddens me.
Yeah.
It saddens me. And I'm the mother. I've said this a million times. I'm the mother of two wonderful grown Black men, and I every day I conduct myself in a manner that I'm putting something out into the world, because I want them to be protected. I want them to be valued, and I want them to receive compassion.
Yeah.
And particularly, I'm looking for the compassion from people that look like them, and especially women.
That's right.
And we need to have a serious conversation about why we cannot extend Black men compassion, and we cannot come, pull out of, our back pockets and start rolling our necks. Well, because they raping and robbing and all, we can't do that. We
Yeah.
can't do that. First of all, if we claim to even understand anything on the most basic level about criminal activity, it's been said a million times. You hurt the people that are in closest proximity to you. So we don't have some sort of, special certificate, that we receive, like, oh no, it's really just you guys that do that. Like, that's,
You're right.
that's not the case at all. And we have to discuss that more and embrace that more, because I think we do a lot of blaming each other. We do a great deal of um, deflecting the real culprit. So
Yes.
that's the other piece of the that's missing in terms of why we should not be engaging in this suffering Olympics, looking at each other like, well, you did this and I did this, and you, like,
Yeah.
ain't nobody mentioned white supremacy. Like, let's have that conversation, sisters. Like,
Yes.
who began this? Who created these conditions where we are struggling, where we are, you know, poverty. is the majority of us, the majority, I don't care what they put on the news, we know the truth. The majority of black people are living in poverty. That's the masses of us. So we see people on TV, and they're doing all kinds of sorts of things and looking all nice, and
Looking fly.
yeah, and look and living their best life. And that's not the
It's not
model
on.
situation. That's not the average situation.
Well,
And so
yeah.
we don't point the finger at white supremacy. And it's that is so disturbing to me, as particularly as a black woman, because all I can do, and so I want us to get any hate mail before we,
I don't give a
before we
damn. I'll
get,
send some back.
you know
I don't
I
give
think I'm gonna
a
give you a dap on that one. But
damn.
yeah, because I know that there are some people out here, who are in these wonderful interracial, marriages, and right on, power to you. We got folks in our family that you can tell that they derive from those,
Yeah, and that's
so, and
okay
that's
if it's
okay, and that's
if it's just love.
and if it's just love, right, and that's real. But somehow you know we have determined, as black women, somehow that this white man, right, is something that he is not. and
But he
you
doesn't
know
pretend to
and he
be.
and he doesn't pretend to be. And
Yeah,
yet we are saying to our black men, every time we fix our lips to disparage black men, every time we align ourselves with white women, every time we decide that we can tell black men what a real black man is, every time we do those kinds of things, what we are essentially doing is saying to them, your problem is that you are not a white man. And that is deep as shit to me.
well,
Like,
and here's why that's deeper than Atlantis,
whew,
because when I hear sisters say some of this crazy shit, especially when the one of the things that I really hate hearing, black men are forcing us to date white men. But no white men are being forced to date you. So the thing that disturbs me the most about these pieces of propaganda is that they're self-defeating. They're destructive. They're self-destructive because they're saying these things, and the white man's not saying, "Oh yeah, we got to marry more black women." The white man just shut down Roe v. Wade to preserve white babies. So
hmm,
we
right,
we
right.
know what his agenda is. It's pretty damn clear.
Absolutely.
It's pretty damn.
Absolutely. And the propaganda is everywhere. I don't know if you saw Godfrey's he did it wasn't a skit. He videotaped himself. This was like last year. He was in New York, and he's like walking, and he's like looking at all these damn billboards, and he's like, his affectation, like, what the fuck,
Yeah,
because all of these billboards and advertisements, they're looping and everything, and it's these interracial couples, and they're black women with white men. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, how in the world? Like, literally, this is what he's saying in the video. How do you put
yeah.
this shit right here? And I want to say he might have been in the Bronx. And he was like, how do you just sit this stuff right here? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, who thought that was a good idea? And who's okay with this? So
And
the propaganda, right,
we
right.
know Madison
Yeah.
Avenue has issued all of that bullshit and all those messages, and
Hmm.
some of us are accepting it
Are
because we
accepting
don't
it.
think for ourselves, we don't research anything. We hear something that's popular, and we run with it. And I want to go back to something else you pointed out. You talked about how so many of us, most of us, are doing bad financially. That's why it's psychotic when I hear not a tender young sister who's 21,
Mhm.
22, wants to have babies and just be in love. When I hear women over 40 who've been out in the world getting gristled and gristling people saying that they want to provide a protector and they don't want to work, I'm like, baby, who gonna do that?
Where
Who's
they
gonna,
do that?
yeah,
Where they
where they
do
do
that
that?
at?
Because they don't
Where
do
they
that
do that?
in the black community,
Yeah,
and stop saying that that's old school, because that's not old school
that's not
for
old school.
us. Some of us, some people, yeah, that's cool. Some black people had it like that, but that's never been. I mean, right now, less than 10%, I think less than 5% of us black people make over six figures. So people, black folks aren't out there balling out of control. So what we
Right,
should be doing, because the black woman and the black man are natural allies, we should be getting together and saying, how can we build this?
right. Well,
How can we create something?
and you talk about this notion that it's old school, and there is an old school element to that. But what's interesting is that the if they say if you're gonna tell a story, tell the story. And so, yes, black men have been providers in our community. They have been sole providers in our community. And when you have seen that happen, you have had black women who have taken care of home. They
Yes,
have been mothers. They did not have aftercare and drop kids off, right? That's not
that's
what
right.
they were doing. They were taking care. There was no call Uber Eats. They were
Cooking
making
every
cooking
day.
every day.
And they
And
had
when
a sidekick.
eh, they could sew,
They
you know,
sewed, they
they could
ironed, they
they
washed, they
they did a
baked, and did it for other people and
and
still
did
brought money
right.
back to the crib. So this notion of some group of black bourgeoisie that was huge, where they were just, yeah, we were just, black women were just chilling and black men were just paying all the bills. We haven't been there, and we're not there right now. And so it's bizarre, as a single black man, when I'm dating these women who are over 40. Again, if a woman's in her 20s and saying that, I get it, still
Mhm,
dicey,
mhm.
right?
Right, right,
but
right.
but if you are over 40, black woman, and looking for a man to pay all your bills so you can just not work, you have failed at life. That's not to say it doesn't happen, because there's some really solid sisters out there with some solid brothers, and they've created something that works for them.
Yes,
But
yes.
to approach a black man and to pretend that that is so popular, so regular, and so uh, beautiful is crazy. Let me read a comment from another
Okay.
one from Reginald. He says, "Well, if we're being honest, when you look at every measurable sector of human progress, the black male is losing disproportionately
Yes.
to every group in America, especially to black women. The
Yeah.
numbers don't lie. The clincher is these black men are the sons, brothers, cousins, and fathers
Yes.
of these black women who are
Yes.
now looking at us as though we're failing, and we're not.
Yes.
But the only thing, Reggie, I want to point out, Frat, is that we're losing, but the one toehold we still have, and we may lose it, but we do still out earn black women. Let's be clear about that. Black
So,
men do still,
y-
as a group, we still out earn black women.
yeah, but even that data point is, first of all, brother Reggie, thank you for that, because we've talked
Yes,
about that. I think we got into that on the first episode. But
absolutely.
but that, even that data point about out earning black women is also dicey, and has to have layers peeled back, because then you go into some of these organizations and you might have you know, six black women in in that C suite, and let's say the C suite is about, I don't know, 20 people. And you might have five or six black women in that C suite. And when I say black, I mean, from the diaspora,
Yeah.
because it's not just going to be American Black women in those C
That's right.
suites.
That's right.
But and you will still be looking for the brother in the C suite.
Sure.
So even those, even so we Black men will out earn us in those positions, but they will not have those positions to the same extent that we have those positions. I mean, I
Sure.
was in a situation, and I won't name the organization, but I asked about it. Like, I'm just curious. Equity and inclusion is important to us, and we're talking about it. We don't have any Black men, and I'm just trying to understand how that works if we're talking about equity and inclusion and understanding who is, impacted the most. And so I kind of got wrapped on the knuckles by a Black
To
woman
speak now.
about it, so I said, okay, well, I understand what we're working with, or what
Yeah.
I'm working with. But the point is, Brother Reggie is right on the money. It and when you talk about this is why that conversation about this privilege is so critical, and it's just something that it's like you have to hold on to that conversation like a dog with a bone, because Black women cannot continue to say Black men have privilege, and as Brother Reggie said, the numbers don't lie. Black
Right.
men are not winning.
Yeah.
Black men
Not
are
at all.
not winning
Not
on
well. Right. And we're not winning. And so what Black women have to understand is that since many of us now understand the ways in which we are losing,
mm-hmm.
now there's no more frivolity dealing with relationships. See,
Yes,
before,
yes.
when we weren't losing as bad and when we
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that
Right,
we were
right.
losing bad,
Yeah.
then we could be reckless. So you had a lot of women who could win in relationships that didn't make sense. So they could jump in and get married to a dude that had a couple of dollars, wreck
Mm-hmm.
everything, take it, and be out. Well, no. So now it's the tale of two cities. It's the good best of times and the worst of times. It's the best of times for the good sisters who, and there are a lot of them, we just need to find each other. It's the best of times for the beautiful sisters who just want to love a man and partner up. But it's the worst of times now, and it's getting worse for the filthy hoes who don't mean any good for anybody, for other women, for men, for their children. It's the worst of times because men now are starting to understand, Black men are starting to understand
Yes,
you
yes.
have to make sure you protect yourself, protect your children, because some of these chicks, they're just no damn good. And I think, I hate to have to say it, but at this point I have to say, I don't want anybody coming at me thinking, oh, well, Darryl, you bashing women. You can go to hell, because I'm never saying all, and I'm always saying how there are so many good sisters out there, but these bad ones are doing some real destruction, and that's why we got to have these conversations.
That's exactly why we have to have the conversations, and that's why I'm having the conversations, because quite
Yes.
honestly, I was like, I'm really tired of the Black womanhood, the Black woman's voice being represented by this Black feminist who can't stand Black men, whether the ones that help birth her, or the ones that she birthed. Like, that's problematic. That's something that is that we as Black women who reject it, we can't. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. I've always said this, it's treasonous, and we cannot be silent. And as and I always hate when I hear people say, well, we're not a monolith. This is not. We use that a lot of times. I think we use that phrase
Cop out.
when it is when we can't think through, you know why we are at a crossroads, really, and to be able to
Yes.
articulate that, right? This is a serious crossroad. We are really headed for disaster. And
Yeah.
we are either all going to rise together, or we are all going to just incinerate, and
Well,
in our own heated mess. And I, for one, I think all of us, the people that are watching, people in our circles, we understand that there's an investment that we've made, as Black people in each other, and we want to honor that. So these conversations, as you said, they're important. Like I said,
yeah.
I'm tired of I am so I try not to cuss on these
Uh,
but I'm so goddamn tired of that Black feminist. I
yes.
don't know what to
Yeah.
do. I'm so
Yeah.
sick of her.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, we don't typically have children
Right.
watching.
Well,
You
I'm
know what I
just no,
mean?
I'm just trying to, like,
Now,
because
speak your mind.
I
Speak
can
it.
jump out there. So I just
It's an emotional issue, and it
it is
should
an
be,
emotional
and you
issue,
should feel comfortable expressing your
and
emotion,
it's
because where we are now, I know in talking to you and in talking to a number of other people I speak to on a regular basis, I'm always making statements like, "Hey, well, it's almost over.
uh,
It's
yeah.
almost done. Almost done."
I have a friend. He sends me texts periodically. We're doomed. And then I
Yeah.
and then I go look to see, okay, what do we do now? And it's usually something related to, Black women, Black feminism, that, whole alignment, and all of that. But one of the things that you were talking about in terms of, you're not saying all women, and you're not bashing women. One of the things I want to say specifically to women who understand this, who love Black men, who reject this idea that we have to be in this, suffering Olympics, who see Black men in their full humanity. Um, this is a word of advice. If you have Black women in your circles who do not love Black men, you need to put them on ice.
Burn
Like,
them.
seriously.
Burn
Like,
those
seriously.
bridges. Burn those
And
bridges.
it might be women in your family. And that doesn't mean that you can't love them, but you have to protect your energy around them. And you particularly have to, and I'm going to say this to Black mothers, you also have to protect your Black sons from that energy, right? Because we all know that it's it's nothing to hear a Black woman say to a Black child, you ain't shit just like your daddy. Like, we have comedians who will do whole
Oh,
soliloquies about that, whole skits about that. So we
yeah.
know that that's real. um so just being sure that we cut them loose. And it's not this, I don't want to describe it as sort of like divorcing, family and friends. But what I am saying is, when you make a stand and let people know, like, no, that's not acceptable. And it's because what it should be doing. It should be going against your own personal value system, is really
That's
what it
right.
should be offending. And when I see it, I'm like, yeah, we're done. We're done.
Yeah.
And that's real, because what is happening is, as Brother Darryl, as you're saying, it's so damaging. It's so detrimental. It's so destructive. And we're having to constantly backpedal to try to make up, and we're continuously losing ground. That Imagine that we are in, what year is this, 2022,
22.
and my grandmother turns 98 this year.
Oh, wow.
And she and she was married. My grandfather was about a decade older than her, and they had 8 children. The idea that my grandmother's marriage um, lasted longer than some of what we're seeing with Black women today. That her commitment to marriage, and supporting Black men. And my grandmother had basically had nothing. I mean, her dad was a sharecropper.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about people who came out of money. And so, we're not my grandmother didn't graduate high school.
See?
So we're talking about people in that era who understood what they were called to do,
And
that
did it.
they were called to do it together, and they did it.
Well,
They did it.
and it's important also right now because things are getting uglier for everyone. And
Yes.
so it goes, shit trickles down. And so
Yes, it does.
it's going to be hell to pay for black people. And so how do we try to, get ourselves together and weather the storm? With each other. And so, when brothers like me start telling sisters, look, don't say this, don't say that, don't do this, don't do that, and they start to reject it, it's like, okay, cool. Well, then you'll be by yourself. And you're going to be out there and, doing your thing. And God bless you because I'm not fucking with you,
Yeah.
because if as a man, I can't tell a woman what makes sense to a man, then it's time to go. And
Then
so
it's
we
time
got
to
to
go.
get to the point, and let me do this. Let me reverse what you said for the women who excise their crew, their surroundings. I've done that. I had a friend, he passed away a couple of years ago. I had a friend, frat brother. We were good since, I was a teenager. And as I got older, his misogyny was so disgusting that I couldn't listen to his bullshit anymore. And just got to the point one day where I was like, you're dead to me. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
gone. And we got to be willing to do it. That's why I tell people I don't have friends who are deadbeat dads.
Right.
I don't
Right.
have friends who beat women up. I don't have friends who just disrespect and talk crazy. And so that's why it's hard for me to date some of these sisters who think that they're just being free and they're only worried. This gets back to the suffering Olympics. They're only worried about what women are going through. If you are not worried about what the black man is going through as well as what the black woman is going through, you are useless. You are the enemy. The
Yeah.
enemy. It's both of us. I mean, and what we got to do, I hear these sisters saying that they want old school, but you really don't.
You
Because if
really
you want
don't.
old school, you'll start paying attention to stop lying on my ancestors. Stop lying on the women in in,
Ooh.
in our past. Stop lying on these women, because you think they were weak. Go to hell. These sisters were super strong. They held families together. They shored up brothers who were out there getting bludgeoned by the world, and they come back. These weren't some weak little women who were, oh, please don't hit me anymore, because half the time you knew if it was a brother beating up a sister, at some point he was probably gonna lose his balls. He was gonna get cut, stabbed. Well,
Yeah.
stop pretending that women of previous generations were weak because they weren't. They were strong as hell.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's also something that's been really disappointing to me that somehow this new narrative has emerged that our foremothers were miserable, had no agency,
Right.
and those kinds of things. There's actually a story in that uh, Dr. Tommy J. Curry talks about, um, in his book where he highlights how this whole idea of black women needing to get away from black men, really began to manifest. And when you read the documentation of um, black women and this idea of needing the vote, like, and then going to white men and saying, well, we need these protections. And when you read it, it's almost hilarious. but it's so diabolical.
Yes.
And these are and these documentations, obviously documentations made by white men and white women, are what so many of our black female scholars are using to discuss relationships between black men and black women, and not just relationships, but in general how we interface within our collective. So there's this prevailing narrative within black scholarship that black women have somehow been able to turn our pain into triumph, and black men have just
We just
become
whining.
degenerates, and it doesn't even make any sense. But so much of this is it, well, actually all of it, not so much of it, all of it is coming from white supremacy narratives about black men, and we fell for it,
Yeah. Well,
unfortunately.
that's why the color purple won't die, because that Miss Anne has declared that as our
The
history,
definitive
and the
as the
definitive
definitive work.
existed,
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and we embrace it. Let me read a couple of comments. Sean Berry said, "Too many people are speaking from relationships they keep getting into and lumping men into that. Then they
yeah.
find more bitter females to join them. It's real talk." Tiara Jones says, "The white women were weak and being tested, treated like dogs by their husbands. That's their narrative, so that we don't belong in their feminist fight. It was white women that were weak and being treated like dogs by white men, not our grands and great grands." It's real talk, because we have made beautiful music. We basically raised beautiful children that went on to do some beautiful things, all the way through. So to pretend now with this revisionist bullshit that black women in yesteryear were just miserable and being treated like shit. I'm like, who the fuck are you talking to? Who are you talking about? Because like the strongest group of people in the world are African Americans, period. Let's say that. And to pretend that black women, African American women, are somehow stronger now. How are you stronger now? You ain't going through shit
And you're
except
not
some
going through,
bullshit that's
yeah.
self-imposed,
The
because you can't go to
self-imposed.
you can't go to Italy and screw 50
Right.
men and still get a white dress wedding, and have a man take
Oh
care of you
no.
so you don't have to work. Man, shut the fuck out of here. You
Yeah,
know
we're
what
not. Right. There is no real comparison. But I so appreciate the comments. But the one thing that I will say about the sister who made the comment about white women being weak. Um, I
Tiara.
I yeah, Sister Tiara, I want us to kind of think about that a little bit, and I'm gonna tell you why. Um, white women, obviously they took a lot of stuff from white men, and particularly if you're watching the man that you're married to leaving out the back door to go to the field, and to violate whatever woman he so chose. Um, and so, and we also know, just in terms of European culture, and Dr. Stacy Patton has been writing about this, just the absolute savagery that they um, that they participated in, with each other, but also and particularly with their children.
Yes.
But the reason I want us to rethink that characterization, right, is because that's a diabolical bitch. And
Indeed.
there's no other way to put it. And so maybe, I think she was lazy. She didn't want to raise her own children. She didn't want to, nurse them. She didn't
Right.
want to clean her house. That's how black women
Didn't want to
um
cook.
she didn't want, yeah, I mean, that's there. I was looking at something just a couple of days ago. I think I posted on Facebook where there was an article about Negro women, a law being passed. Negro women had to go to work because they were going to be arrested because white women were like, well, we don't, who's going to help us take care of our children? And because,
Those were vagrancy laws.
right, yes, because black women were happy to stay home because we were, and this is how so much of this is just absolute, as you said, bullshit, that we just take these narratives and we just make up stuff. We just pull it out of the air and whatever fits the day.
Yes.
But how is it that you talk about, we're trying to get this new narrative about black women being weak and being miserable and disrespected in these marriages, as if that was the prevailing narrative in existence of our foremothers, when there has to when white supremacy is passing laws to keep black women out of the homes. If they were not happy in those homes, do you think that they would be creating laws to get them out
To
of their
get them out.
homes?
Listen, listen. Look, my brother Preston James, he said, what's sad is some of the same black women who were raised by strong black women have bought into the revisionist narrative of the weak black woman ancestry. And
Yeah,
so that's a deeper kind of traitor, right? So
yeah,
you were raised by, I mean, your legacy black woman is strength. You all these queens, these beautiful, shining, beautiful black human beings that endured, that did what they needed to do to keep families together, to shore their black man up. Because, and I say this all the time, and a lot of black men know this, it wasn't about the man or the woman, it was about the unit. Because whatever you think that the black man did out there and was, that's from Malcolm to Martin, whatever you think they did, shit, if they didn't have that sister with them, I don't think they would have done half of it. So it was about the unit. It was
right,
about them working together. So this whole notion of a black woman walking up to a man and just wanting to jump on his back, I don't want to work anymore, be old school and provide. No, you be old school and work with me and let's build a life.
right. And
Let's
let's build
build
a life.
something. Yeah, let's build some generational
Let's
wealth.
build something.
You know?
I mean, and one of the things that is continues to be unsettling about, all of this is that, as black women, um, it's almost as if we have placed some unrealistic expectations on black men. And I mean, to
Yeah.
the point that we see their human qualities as absolute, complete, and total genetic failures. Like, black men are not allowed to fall. Black men are not allowed to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Black men um, are not forgiven
We're not
for,
allowed to cry. We're not allowed to
yeah,
be human.
like, in like all those things. Like, we're looking at, if anytime, what was her name? What's her name? B. Simone. Anytime you're having a conversation about MLK and whether he was a good person versus a good husband, because you, in your mind, think that you're going with the propaganda and talking about him cheating and referring to him as my nigga. First of like what, why?
How
There,
sick.
like, you mean to tell me that you are positioned to be able to dissect this man's life and undercut what he did and who he was because you
Think
think you know
you heard.
about what, right, think you know what you had heard um, and you take that and you build a narrative.
Yeah.
Um, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And if he did, so what?
It's not your business.
It's not your business. But is he the only person, not even man, is he the only person on the planet that has showed the imperfection of being a human? Like we're all capable, and not only capable, but we all make mistakes. And I
That's
think
right.
this thing with black women looking at black men like there's something genetically wrong with you due to your blackness, um, is something that we have to examine, because there's not another woman on the planet that's doing that.
Right.
There just
Yeah.
isn't. You know, there just isn't.
Yeah.
And we have to be real about that, and particularly as we continue to assign ourselves um this label as feminists, and what do you really mean?
Right.
And it's just disturbing. Like, my heart is hurting right now about it, because
Yeah.
um you know you, when you reach a certain point in your life, and I'm certainly at that point, you like when you cross that 50, right? When you cross that 50, things get real clear,
Yeah.
and you don't have any tolerance for foolishness.
That's right.
My aunt always likes to tell me she does not suffer fools gladly. And so I'm looking at us and I'm going, do we understand? Clearly not. That if we can just look at black men and honor their humanity, just see them, right?
Yeah.
Like, how that little thing, how that little thing will change so much for us collectively. And I almost feel like if ever there was a silver bullet, if ever there was a silver bullet, that would be it. Like,
Well,
you want to you
yeah.
want to deal with race, you want to deal with white supremacy. I always tell my sons this: the most revolutionary thing is to be, a black man married to a black woman having black babies, and it's the same
Absolutely.
thing. Be where you want to be a revolutionary black woman, get with a black man, support a black man, whether it's, romantically or not, support black men. That's fucking revolutionary.
That's real. Brother Malcolm said it. We ourselves have to lift the standards of our community. You know what I mean? And, we have to change our minds about each other. That's what he said. And it
That's what he
remains
said.
true today. And
Yeah.
so, for anyone who thinks, that this was designed to attack black women, go kill yourself. Because that's not what this is. If we can't talk about our problems without people saying, oh, you hate black women or you're bashing black women, that's why I was excited to do this. I'm going to launch mine next week. So I changed it from 4 sisters only to 4 hour sisters, because
I
that's what
love
it
that.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then brothers can be in two.
Yeah.
And
I
then
like that.
yeah, thank you. And then Monday I'm gonna launch 4 hour brothers, and then I'm gonna start bringing in guests so we can start doing webinars
Yeah.
so that we can set aside a 2 hour portion and have a psychiatrist, have an attorney,
Yeah.
and start talking about some of the real legal, ethical, physical, mental issues in our community, and really start to put it down. And as we move along, I'll start to push the website more so that can grow, because these are discussions that need to happen, because who else is having them?
Well, it's and not only that, on top of what you just said, that all of our media, And I when I say our, I mean I'm not talking about MSNBC and all them folks, because we know
Right.
who we know who funds them. We know who they're owned by. We know that the messaging is controlled. So so if you're a black person working for those organizations, we know that it's sorry, Joy and Reed, I didn't mean to call you out
I
like
don't even think she would take offense. You know, she knows.
but yeah, this is, I mean, it's real talk. We know that you're not talking to us and in our interests. um but we also have to be very clear that, as you said, we're not having these conversations, and the reason we're not having these conversations is because they don't want us to have these conversations.
That's
And so
right.
every time you try to have these conversations, you are being told to hush up. It's the same thing why we can't have a conversation about why are black people still being tied to this Democratic ticket. Vote blue, no. You get on, you say one thing about, can we at least talk about it?
Oh,
And
you
then you
love
give,
Trump. You voted for Trump. You're a Trump supporter. I can't believe you. I didn't
you
really
know
understand how psychotic
it
people
is.
were until
And
that
they
shit.
and we get shut down. We get shut,
Yeah.
the black women, sisters. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a right to choose when you have a baby. I'm simply saying, can we discuss it as a community? Because it doesn't just affect you in your individual situation, it has a serious impact on our community. And even if it is somehow overturned, or or whatever the case may be,
Reinstated. Yeah.
reinstated, we need to understand what the effects and what the impacts, and really look at what the data is telling us about abortion in our community.
Well,
And there needs to be a conversation so that we can examine how black men figure into this. This idea of, well, it's my body. So you're holding all the cards, right?
right.
You get to say, well, this is who I had an entanglement with.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to have the baby. Oh no, I think I want to have the baby. No, I think I don't want to have the baby, and you can't say anything about it. Oh
Right.
well, I'm having this baby, and you don't want to have this baby. Oh, guess where we're going? Now we're going to court. We're holding too many cards,
Right.
and you that's not life. That's not real life.
That's yeah.
That's
That's
that's a
childhood.
manu that's a manu it is, it's a very childlike
That's
response.
childhood. Well,
And it's a very manufactured situation that we are even allowed to get away with that. And so we got
yes.
to ask our like, well, why is it that
Yeah.
we can tell a black man, well, I'm not going to keep your baby. But then if we decide that we want to keep a black man's baby, and he did not want to have a child, that we can
Now he's the
then
villain.
use, then we he's the villain. But also we have mechanisms in place where we can both
To
penalize him and
that's right.
criminalize him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say two things, Denise. First and foremost, you should do a show and discuss Roe v. Wade. Let me say that. But
okay.
as far as abortion is concerned, I'm going to share this, and I'm okay with making this public. I have two situations. One, when I was a child, freshman year in college, and my high school sweetheart got pregnant, she had an abortion, and there was nothing for us to talk about. I had no say so. I just had to show up with the money and shut the hell up. And it was such a horrible situation. It haunted us until finally we couldn't even be friends. It was a horrible, I mean, it ripped me apart. It damn near destroyed me. So moving forward, when my son's mother gets pregnant, same situation to the reverse. I'm having it and there's nothing to talk about and blah, 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 blah. And so I'm like, it's crazy. So that abortion, I never wanted that. That was sick. It was hurtful, almost destroyed me. So with this, when she said that, I didn't say anything to her, but in my mind, I'm like, good, because I want a child. So,
Right, right.
but again, the whole idea that I had, both, and a
Mhm.
lot of black men have had that, where they've
Yeah.
been pulled left or right with no, a friend of mine, and he put it out there, so I'm sure he won't mind me saying, Alonzo from the World Class Wrecking Crew, 6 kids, at least I think 6, that he all raised and took care of himself, and he said I got 6 kids, and no one ever asked me if I wanted to be a father. That's that's
That's
powerful
good. It
for
is
us
powerful.
to see. Like, we gotta stop thinking that we just got a bunch of deadbeat dads. We got a lot. I don't know if he's watching my cousin. Terrence Shedrick, feels crazy calling him Terrence because he got a nickname, but yeah, he's raised his son himself. I know a lot of guys who have put themselves in a position to take care of the children that they were given, but sometimes it's just not that way. So I'd like for you to do a show and talk about Roe v. Wade, maybe bring a guest on, and I'll play the
Okay.
background and just produce the show, you know what I mean, and make it happen.
All
But
right, let's figure it out.
yeah,
Yeah,
these
I mean,
discussions have
it
to happen.
they have to happen, and we have to accept that what's good for our community is not going to be found outside of our community. It's
Ooh,
there's not another model out there. First of all, there is no other community that has historically gone through what we've gone through.
that's
So
right.
that's and that wouldn't necessarily be an issue, except we're still going through it. Like
You're
it's never been repaired,
yes,
right? It's never been
yes,
repaired. So it's
yes.
not like we got this opportunity to wipe the slate clean and so now start all over. It's never
Well,
been repaired.
but Denise, we had Barack.
Oh, how did I forget that? Oh my gosh. Oh, who knew?
And some black fools actually say that. We had a black president. I'm like, no, we didn't. We had a president that had a little melanin. That was it. That was it. Just like that
Bless his heart.
tragic mulatto that's vice president right now, Camel Toe.
Yeah,
We got to stop going for the okey doke.
we
But yeah,
do.
so you should
We're
you
gonna
should
make it happen.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
yeah. And so yes, to reiterate, this is not sister bashing. This is actually, and I don't beg. But this is really pleading, with our collective of sisters. Like we got to do better,
Yes.
and we got to do differently because you know none none of this is going to happen with. Well, let me backtrack. Black men can move forward without us, and they are.
Glad you said that because
They are,
it's
and
happening. It's happening.
and it's happening, and um,
And it ain't just to white women. There's a
it's
number
not.
of number of
They're
options.
going to the continents.
Yes, Brazil, because those are black women down there. They're going younger women. Hell, I'm personally about to go on a fact finding mission all through the South, for black women who are
Hmm.
young and have, some history and tradition and culture. So, yeah, it's not all about Becky. Black men are really looking for options
Yeah,
because these women over 40 who just want to jump on and ride, it's got to stop. Like, you can't come at me and tell me that I ain't shit and then ask me to give you everything you ever dreamed of. It's
yeah.
got to
It,
stop.
it's
So,
gotta stop.
for our sisters, this is going to be every Thursday, 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern. Do the math in the middle. And so I'm gonna sprinkle a few dollars on promotions to build the audience, not only for the podcast that we're doing, but also to push people, like I said, towards Black Love Today. And then I'm gonna open up the Black Love Today Facebook and Instagram page too.
Okay.
And then my show for our brothers is gonna kick off next Monday, and then be every Monday regularly after that.
Okay.
All right,
Okay. We
cool.
are we're
So
doing it.
yeah,
Oh
so
yeah. The
Go
only
ahead.
other thing I would add, which is just if if there are any sisters out there that are listening and are connected, I am going to be hosting via Zoom a virtual book club just for the month of August in honor of Black August, which is Black Liberation Month, and I'm reading my favorite book these days, The Man Not
I'm not.
by Dr. The Man Not, yes, Race, Class, Genre, and the Dilemmas of Black Manhood, by Dr. Tommy J. Curry. If you don't have a Bible, then get this book because it is the truth, and we need to understand from a historical and systemic lens, why there is this trope of black men as monsters, and how we as black women adopted that bedtime story
Yeah.
and retell it and retell it.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, so everyone who's listening, thank you for listening live. Like
thank
it
you,
and
thank you,
share
thank
it.
you.
Like it and share it. We usually get over 100 views afterwards. So all the people who are going to listen later, still like it and share it, and let's make it grow. So share
Let's
it on
make
your
it grow.
social media platforms, and let's get it out there. Let's get this discussion uh, growing because we don't have a lot of it.
Yeah. And brother Daryl, I have to keep giving you a shout out. Thank you for your vision on this, because this is a necessary movement.
Yes, it is.
This isn't just, oh, two people, trying to do podcasts and, have 5 minutes of fame. No, this is trying to build a movement, because
Absolutely.
you have a son, I have sons.
Yeah,
You want things to be better for them, and things will not be better for our children and our grandchildren if black men and black women are not of one accord and
that's
and
right.
functioning in a very harmonious manner. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, thank you, Sister Denise, for stepping up and making this happen. And let's do it. Let's get it
let's
cracking.
do it. Let's
Let's
get it
do
cracking.
it. All right.
All right, peace and blessings,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you. All right. Good night.
Good night.